No police, please. I'll be good. The whisper came from behind a gas station ice machine. A 6-year-old girl, barefoot on freezing asphalt, blonde hair matted so thick it looked brown. She weighed 31 pounds, 14 pounds below what any doctor would call survivable. Her name was Lily. She had stolen a bag of beef jerky and was choking on it because she hadn't eaten in 5 days. But what the Hells Angels discovered in her foster father's basement that night would mobilize 143 bikers from 3 states and expose a trafficking network that had made 52 children disappear. Subscribe now and watch until the end. Comment your city below. I want to see how far this story travels. The beef jerky wrapper crinkled loud in the silence. That was what caught Jake Brennan's attention. Not the girl herself. She was too small, too quiet, too practiced at being invisible. But the wrapper, that cheap, crinkly plastic, echoed off the ice machine like a gunshot in the still October night. Jake had stepped outside the gas station for a smoke. 42 years old, brown hair going gray at the temples before its time, hands that still carried calluses from his Army Ranger days, and newer ones from 12 years of gripping motorcycle handlebars. Sergeant-at-Arms of the Hells Angels Cedar Ridge chapter. The kind of man that strangers cross the street to avoid. He heard the wrapper. He turned his head, and he saw a flash of movement. Something small, something fast, darting behind the ice machine like a rat escaping light. Jake didn't chase, didn't yell. He walked slowly, the way he'd been trained to approach unknown situations in Kandahar 15 years ago. Measured steps, hands visible, breathing steady. He found her crouched in the narrow gap between the ice machine and the wall, barefoot, toes black with dirt and cold, a torn nightgown that might have been pink once but was now the color of nothing. And those eyes, enormous, blue, ancient, staring up at him with a kind of terror that doesn't come from being startled. It comes from being beaten, regularly, by someone she couldn't escape. "No police, please." The words came out garbled. She was still chewing, still swallowing, still trying to get food into her stomach before someone took it away. Beef jerky and tears. "I'll be good. I'll go back. Please don't call them. Please." Jake felt something fracture inside his chest. He'd heard begging before. He'd heard grown men beg in combat zones. He'd heard his own daughter beg the doctors to make the pain stop before the drunk driver's damage finished what had started 9 years ago. She was gone by morning. But this was different. This was a child who had given up on rescue and was negotiating the terms of her punishment. "I'm not calling anyone," Jake said. He lowered himself to one knee, making himself smaller, less threatening. "What's your name?" The girl's eyes darted left, right, calculating escape routes the way a trapped animal does. She'd done this before, run before, been caught before. "Are you going to hit me?" "No." "Everybody says that." Jake closed his eyes for a second. Just 1 second. Then he opened them. "My name's Jake. People call me Copper. And I'm not going to hit you. I'm not going to call anyone. I just want to know if you're hungry." She stared at him. Chewing stopped. The beef jerky hung from her fingers, half-eaten. "Why? Why what? Why do you care?" 6 years old. 6 years old, and she was already asking why a stranger would care. Because no one ever had. Because kindness had a price in her world, and she'd learned to ask the cost up front. Because you're a kid standing barefoot in the cold eating stolen beef jerky, and that's not okay. That's why. Something flickered in her face. Not trust, not even close, but curiosity, maybe. The faintest crack in a wall built by years of pain. "Lily," she whispered. "My name's Lily." "Okay, Lily. You want to come inside? I'll buy you something to eat. Something warm." "I can't pay." "Didn't ask you to." Mr. Gerald says nothing's free. He says if someone gives you something, they want something back. He says, "Mr. Gerald's wrong." Lily flinched, hard, like he'd raised his hand. The reaction was so instant, so automatic, so deeply burned into her nervous system that Jake had to look away for a moment, because if he didn't, the rage building behind his eyes would show, and this girl would run. "Who's Mr. Gerald?" he asked, keeping his voice level. Lily's face went blank, sealed shut, a door slamming closed on a room full of horrors. "Nobody. I shouldn't have said that. I need to go back. He'll notice I'm gone. He checks at midnight, and if I'm not in bed, he—" She stopped, swallowed, wrapped her arms around herself. "He what, Lily? I need to go. It's 28 degrees out here. You don't have shoes. I don't need shoes. Everybody needs shoes. Not if you run fast enough." Jake's jaw locked so tight he thought his teeth would crack. This girl, this tiny, starving, barefoot girl had learned that running fast enough was a substitute for shoes. That hunger was normal. That darkness was deserved. That every kindness came with a cost. "Come inside," Jake said. 10 minutes. I'll buy you food. You eat, then you decide what you want to do. No tricks, no catches." Lily studied him for a long time. Longer than any 6-year-old should need to evaluate whether an adult was safe. Then she nodded. One small, terrified nod. They went inside. Jake bought her 3 hot dogs, a bag of chips, a chocolate milk, and a sleeve of powdered donuts. She ate like the food was going to vanish, cramming hot dog into her mouth so fast she gagged, swallowed, gagged again. "Slow down," Jake said gently. "It's not going anywhere." "You don't know that." "Yeah, I do. I bought it. It's yours." Lily paused, a chip halfway to her mouth. Something shifted in her expression. Confusion, like she'd been handed a math problem she couldn't solve. Then she threw up. All of it. Right there on the gas station floor. Her stomach had shrunk so much from starvation that it couldn't hold real food anymore. She started crying. Not loud. She'd been taught not to cry loud, but in these horrible, silent, heaving sobs that shook her entire body. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please don't be mad. I'll clean it up. Lily, stop." She froze. "It's okay," Jake said. "We'll get more. We'll go slower this time." He bought more food. She ate half a hot dog in tiny bites, sipping chocolate milk between each one. The cashier watched from behind the counter, saying nothing, but his eyes were wet. "How long since you've eaten?" Jake asked. "What day is it?" The question hit Jake like a fist. "Saturday." "Then, Monday, I think. Mr. Gerald gave us rice on Monday, half a cup each." "Us?" Lily's eyes went wide. She'd said too much. "Nobody, just me." "Lily, how many kids are at Mr. Gerald's house?" Silence. She picked at the hot dog bun, tearing it into tiny pieces. "Lily." 19, she whispered. "But Tommy makes 20, except Tommy's in the quiet place, so I don't know if he counts." "The quiet place?" "The basement, where you go when you're bad." Jake's blood dropped 10 degrees. "What happens in the quiet place?" "Nothing. That's why it's quiet. No food, no water, no light, just dark. And you stay there until Mr. Gerald says you learned your lesson." "How long?" "Depends. 1 day if you were a little bad, 2 days if you were medium bad, 3 days if—" Lily's voice dropped so low Jake had to lean forward to hear her. 3 days if you talk to an adult about home stuff." "Has he put you down there?" Lily nodded. Her hands were shaking so badly the hot dog bun pieces were falling. 11 times. 11? Jake stopped himself, breathed. "What was the longest?" 3 days, because I told my teacher I was hungry. My teacher called Mr. Gerald, and Mr. Gerald said I was lying for attention. And that night he carried me downstairs and said I needed to think about what happens to girls who make up stories. Jake's hands curled into fists under the table. He forced them open, forced his face to stay calm, forced the red tide back. "You said Tommy is down there now?" Lily's lip trembled. 5 days. He's been down there 5 days. 5 days. How old is Tommy? 4. The gas station felt like it tilted. 4 years old. 5 days in a pitch-black basement with no food, no water, no light. Jake's mind did the math involuntarily. A 4-year-old could survive approximately 72 hours without water under optimal conditions. 5 days was 120 hours, far beyond the limit. Is Tommy? Is he okay? Lily's face crumbled. I don't know. I go to the basement door every night when Mr. Gerald is sleeping. I put my ear against it and listen. Tommy used to cry. Then he used to tap on the wall. Then he used to hum this song his mommy taught him before she went away. When did he stop? Yesterday. Yesterday I listened and there was nothing. No crying, no tapping, no humming. Just, Lily's voice cracked, just quiet. Jake stood up so fast the chair scraped across the floor. Lily recoiled. I'm not mad at you, he said quickly. I'm not mad at you. I need to make a phone call. Can you sit here for 1 minute? I'll be right by that door. You can see me the whole time. You're going to call the police? No. You're going to call Mr. Gerald? I would rather die. Something in his voice, the rawness of it, the absolute certainty, made Lily believe him. She nodded. Jake walked to the door, pulled out his phone, and called the one person on earth he trusted with something like this. 1 ring. 2. Then a voice like old leather being pulled tight. Copper, you're supposed to be at the memorial ride. What's going on? Preacher, I need everyone. Everyone you can get within 300 miles. Tonight. A pause. Reno Preacher Gallagher, 61 years old, president of the Hells Angels Cedar Ridge chapter, had been running this club for 14 years. He'd heard a lot of phone calls, but something in Jake's voice made him set down his coffee and stand up from his chair. Talk to me. Jake told him everything. The girl, the weight, the bruises, the 19 children, the basement, the 4-year-old boy who hadn't made a sound in 24 hours. The silence on the other end lasted 4 seconds. Where are you? Miller's gas station, Route 12, Ridgecrest, Montana. Stay there. Don't move. Don't call anyone else. I'm mobilizing Wyoming and Idaho. We'll have 140 brothers there by 1 a.m. Can you keep that girl safe until then? Jake looked through the glass door at Lily. She was sitting exactly where he'd left her, not eating, not moving, just watching him with those ancient eyes, waiting to see if this adult would keep his word or break it, like every adult before him. Yeah, Jake said, I can keep her safe. Then that's your only job right now. We're coming. The line went dead. Jake walked back inside. Lily was clutching the chocolate milk with both hands, like it was the only real thing in her universe. Who did you call? Family. You have family? 143 brothers, and they're all about to make Mr. Gerald very, very sorry. Lily stared at him. Nobody's ever been sorry about Mr. Gerald before. He's important. He goes to church. The mayor likes him. The police chief's wife brings him casseroles. He's never met people like us. What kind of people are you? Jake crouched down to her eye level. The kind that don't walk away. 40 minutes passed. Jake bought Lily a second chocolate milk and a blanket from the gas station's emergency kit. She sat wrapped in it, looking like a cocoon, occasionally sipping milk, occasionally glancing at Jake like she was checking that he was still there. Then she said something that stopped his heart. There's more. More what? More kids. Not at Mr. Gerald's, other places. Jake went very still. What other places? Mr. Gerald has meetings, once a month. Other grown-ups come. They sit in his kitchen and talk about us. They call us inventory. Inventory. I don't know what it means, but they count us. And sometimes they say a kid is ready to be relocated. And then that kid disappears. Disappears how? Just gone. One morning their bed is empty. Mr. Gerald says they went to a better home. But Lily's voice dropped to a whisper so quiet Jake had to strain to hear it. But Marcus was relocated 6 months ago. He was my friend. He was 8. And before he left, he told me he heard Mr. Gerald on the phone saying that Marcus was, quote, worth $45,000 easy. Jake felt the floor shift beneath him. $45,000. Worth $45,000. These weren't foster care transfers. These were sales. How many kids have been relocated, Lily? Since I came? 3. But the older kids say it's been happening for years. They say Mr. Gerald has a list. And when your name gets on the list, you're gone within a week. Is your name on the list? Lily's whole body went rigid. Her eyes filled with something beyond fear. Something that looked like resignation. Mr. Gerald said last week that I was almost ready. He said I was almost old enough. He said there was a man who wanted someone like me. Jake's vision went white. Pure, blinding white. The rage that flooded his body was so absolute, so complete, that for 3 seconds he couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't think. His daughter's face flashed through his mind. Blonde hair, blue eyes, 9 years old forever. He breathed. Once. Twice. Forced himself back from the edge. That's not going to happen, he said. His voice was steady even though his hands were shaking. Do you hear me, Lily? That is never going to happen. You can't stop him. Nobody can stop him. He knows people. Important people. He doesn't know me. You're just one person. I'm not one person. I'm 143 people. And by tomorrow morning, Mr. Gerald's house is going to be empty. His files are going to be in the hands of the FBI, and he's going to be in handcuffs. I promise you that. Lily looked at him for a long, long time. Then she said something that shattered him. My mom used to promise things too, before she died. She promised I'd always be safe. She promised no one would ever hurt me. Lily's voice was flat, hollow. She was wrong. People are always wrong when they promise things to kids like me. I'm not your mom, and I'm not wrong. How do I know that? Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a silver chain, a St. Michael medal that had belonged to his daughter Cassie. He'd worn it every day for 9 years, never taken it off. He pressed it into Lily's palm. Hold this for me. It was my daughter's. She died 9 years ago. I've carried it every single day since. It's the most important thing I own. Lily stared at the medal. I'll need it back, Jake said. So yeah, I'm coming back. I don't break promises. Not about this. Not ever. Lily's fingers closed around the medal. Her lip trembled. Her eyes filled. And for the first time since Jake had found her behind that ice machine, she didn't look like a child calculating escape routes. She looked like a child, hoping. Okay, she whispered. Okay. At 12:47 a.m., the first headlights swept across the gas station parking lot. Then more. Then more. The rumble of engines filled the night like approaching thunder. 27 bikes from the Wyoming chapter rolled in first, followed by 18 from Idaho, then Montana brothers arriving in groups of 5, 10, 15. Men in leather vests stepped off their bikes and walked toward Jake without a word. Faces hard, eyes harder. Fathers, grandfathers, men who had dropped everything, jobs, sleep, warmth, because somewhere in the Montana dark, a 4-year-old boy was dying in a basement, and 19 children were starving in a house run by a man the county called a hero. Tank Morrison reached Jake first. 6'4", 290, a former Marine who communicated primarily through silence and occasional violence. He looked through the gas station window at Lily, still wrapped in the blanket, still clutching the medal. How old? 6. Weight? 31 pounds. Tank closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. And the boy in the basement? 4 years old, 5 days, no water. Tank's jaw worked. His hands opened and closed at his sides. Then we move now. We wait for Preacher. We need this coordinated. If Gerald has connections to other homes, other operators, we have to hit them all at once or they scatter. And if that boy dies while we coordinate? Jake didn't answer. He couldn't, because the truth was a knife with no handle. Every minute they planned was a minute Tommy might not have. And every minute they rushed was a minute a predator network might use to destroy evidence, move children, vanish into the dark. Preacher arrived at 1:14 a.m., white beard, reading glasses, wearing a flannel shirt under his vest. He looked like somebody's grandfather buying pipe tobacco at a hardware store. But his eyes were made of something that didn't bend. He walked past every brother in that parking lot without stopping, went straight to the gas station window, and looked at Lily. She looked back. Preacher stood there for 10 seconds. Then he turned to Jake. She reminds me of Ella. Ella, Preacher's daughter, failed by the foster system at age 8, dead from neglect in state care while a caseworker filed paperwork certifying the home was safe. I know, Jake said. That's why I started this club. That's why we're all here. Preacher's voice was quiet, but every man in that parking lot heard it. 14 years ago, I buried my daughter because the system that was supposed to protect her protected itself instead. I swore on her grave that I would never let that happen to another child. He turned to face the assembled brothers, 143 men standing in the cold Montana night. There's a 4-year-old boy in a basement less than 8 miles from where we're standing. He may already be dead. If he's not, he will be by morning. We are not waiting until morning. He looked at Jake. Copper, you and Tank take 12 men. Get to that house. Get that boy out alive. Document everything. We'll coordinate with the FBI for the full operation, but that child cannot survive another hour. Jake nodded. And the girl? She stays with me, protected. When this is over, every child in that house is going to be safe. And Gerald Hutchins is going to learn what happens when a monster meets something worse than himself. Jake walked back inside the gas station. Lily was watching through the window, her eyes wide at the rows of motorcycles, the men in leather. Are those your brothers? Yeah. All of them? All of them. And they're here for you, for Tommy, for every kid in that house. Lily looked at the parking lot full of Hell's Angels. Then she looked back at Jake, and she said something that would echo in his mind for the rest of his life. Mister, Gerald says nobody cares about kids like us. He says we're invisible. He says we could disappear and nobody would even notice. Jake crouched down. Mr. Gerald is a liar, and tonight 143 people are going to prove it. Lily pressed the St. Michael medal against her chest. Bring Tommy back, she whispered. He's scared of the dark. He's so scared of the dark, and he's been down there so long. Please bring him back. I will. Promise? Promise. Jake stood up, walked out to his bike, and kicked the engine to life. Tank pulled up beside him. 12 brothers fell into formation behind them, and they rode into the darkness toward a house where 20 children were sleeping hungry, a monster was sleeping well-fed, and a 4-year-old boy was either dying or already dead in a room with no light. The last thing Jake heard as he pulled out of the parking lot was Lily's voice, small and fierce through the gas station door. He promised. She was talking to Preacher, telling him, making sure someone else knew. Because in Lily's world, promises were currency, and she just handed hers to a stranger on a motorcycle who said he'd come back. And somewhere in the Montana night, in a basement that smelled like fear, a 4-year-old boy named Tommy was running out of time. 11 motorcycles killed their engines a quarter-mile from the house. Jake signaled and the brothers rolled silent, coasting on momentum, gravel crunching soft under tires. They dismounted in the dark. No words, hand signals only. 12 men who knew how to move without being heard. Jake reached the front porch first. Tank was beside him. The house was dead quiet. Not the quiet of sleep, the quiet of something held down, something suffocated. Jake pressed his ear to the front door. Nothing. He tried the handle. Locked. Tank stepped forward. One kick. The frame splintered. The door swung inward and the smell hit them like a wall. Urine, mold, something rotten underneath. And beneath all of it, the sharp, metallic scent of fear. Years of fear soaked into the walls, the floors, the air itself. Basement, Jake whispered. Now. He moved through the house fast. A hallway, a kitchen, and then he saw it, the door. Heavy, metal reinforced, 3 locks on the outside, 3 locks to keep children in a hole in the ground. Jake's hands shook as he worked the bolts. 1, 2, 3. The door swung open, and darkness breathed out at him like the mouth of something starving. Tommy, his voice echoed down the stairs. Tommy, my name is Jake. I'm here to help you. Lily sent me. Nothing. Tommy, can you hear me? Nothing. Jake descended. Each step groaned under his weight. The air got thicker, wetter, colder. His flashlight cut through the black and found concrete walls, a drain in the center of the floor. No bed, no blanket, no toilet, just bare concrete and darkness. And in the far corner, something so small it barely registered as human. Tommy was curled in a fetal position, eyes closed, skin gray. His lips were cracked so badly they were bleeding. His breathing was shallow, irregular, the kind of breathing that happens when a body is shutting down organ by organ. 4 years old, 22 pounds on a frame that should have carried at least 35. 5 days without food, 5 days without water, 5 days without light or sound or another human voice. Jake dropped to his knees. Tommy, hey buddy, can you open your eyes for me? Nothing. Then, the faintest movement, fingers twitching against the concrete, a sound that wasn't a word, wasn't a cry, was something between a whimper and a breath, the last sound a body makes before it stops trying. He's alive, Jake called up the stairs. Barely. Get the medic down here now. Doc Rivera, the club's field medic, former Navy corpsman, was down those stairs in seconds. He took one look at Tommy and his face went white. Severe dehydration, hypothermia, his pulse is thready. I need an IV and I need it now. And someone call an ambulance. This kid has maybe 2 hours. 2 hours? His kidneys are failing, Jake. I can stabilize him, but he needs a hospital. Yesterday. Tank was already on the phone. Jake watched Doc work. Careful hands, gentle movements, talking to Tommy in a low, steady voice, even though the boy couldn't hear him. Hey, little man, you're okay now. We got you. You're coming out of here. You're never coming back down here again. Tommy's eyes opened, just barely, slits of brown in a gray face. He looked at Doc and something happened that Jake would never forget. Tommy flinched. A 4-year-old boy, barely conscious, near death, and his first instinct upon seeing an adult was to flinch. It's okay, Doc whispered. I'm not him. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to help you. Tommy's cracked lips moved. No sound came out. Then again, barely audible. Dark. I know, buddy. No more dark. I promise. Dark hurt. Doc closed his eyes. His hands kept working, setting the IV, wrapping the small body in an emergency blanket. But tears rolled down his weathered face, and he didn't bother wiping them. Jake left them and went upstairs. He had work to do and rage to control, and a man sleeping somewhere in this house who had locked a 4-year-old in a tomb for 5 days. He found Gerald Hutchins in the master bedroom. King-size bed, thick comforter, 2 pillows, a half-eaten steak on the nightstand, a glass of wine, a television mounted on the wall, a mini-fridge humming in the corner. Upstairs comfort, downstairs a dying child on concrete. Gerald woke when Jake's flashlight hit his face. He sat up, squinting, confused, already reaching for his phone on the nightstand. What the? Who are you? How did you get in my house? I'm calling the police right now. Jake took the phone from his hand, not roughly, calmly. The way you remove a toy from a child who doesn't deserve it. You're not calling anyone. This is breaking and entering. I have rights. I'm a licensed foster care provider. The state of Montana gave you 20 children. You starved 19 of them and locked a 4-year-old in your basement for 5 days. He's dying, Gerald, right now, in your basement, while you slept in a king-size bed with a belly full of steak. Gerald's face changed. Not fear, not guilt. Calculation. The same look Jake had seen on enemy combatants trying to figure out which lie would save them. That child has behavioral problems. He was placed in a therapeutic. Don't. I have documentation. His caseworker approved. I said don't. You have no authority here. You're trespassing. Whatever that girl told you, she's a liar. They all lie. Foster kids are manipulative by nature. It's well documented. Jake stepped closer. Her name is Lily. She's 6 years old and she weighs 31 pounds. She told me you haven't fed these children in 5 days. She told me you lock them in a basement when they cry, and she told me you sell them. For the first time, something broke through Gerald's mask. A flash of real fear, there and gone in half a second. That's absurd. I don't know what you're talking about. $45,000. That's what you said Marcus was worth. An 8-year-old boy. $45,000. Gerald went pale, dead pale. Who told you that? Does it matter? She heard that? She was listening? Gerald caught himself, stopped, his jaw clenched. I want my lawyer. You'll get one, after the FBI gets here, after they open every file cabinet in this house, after they interview every single child you've been starving and beating and selling for the past however many years you've been running this operation. Operation? This is a foster home. I provide a service to the community. Ask anyone. Ask the mayor. Ask Pastor Simmons. Ask Pastor Simmons? Gerald's mouth snapped shut. He'd said too much and he knew it. Who's Pastor Simmons, Gerald? I want my lawyer. Where does Pastor Simmons operate? I have nothing else to say. Does he have children too? Does he have basements? Gerald pressed his lips together. His eyes were darting around the room, looking for an exit, a weapon, a way out. He found none. Tank filled the doorway like a wall of muscle and leather in barely controlled fury. Tie him up, Jake said to Tank. Watch him. Don't let him near a phone. If he talks, let him talk. Everything he says is evidence. Jake left the bedroom and started opening doors. The first room he entered had 6 children in it, 6 kids on bare mattresses on the floor, no sheets, no pillows, wearing clothes so thin he could see their ribs through the fabric. They were awake, all of them, wide eyes catching his flashlight like small moons. Nobody screamed, nobody cried, nobody ran. They just stared at him with the practiced stillness of children who had learned that sound meant punishment and movement meant pain. My name is Jake, he said softly. I'm here to help you. Mr. Gerald is not in charge anymore. A boy, maybe 10, spoke from the back of the room. He says that too. When the inspectors come, he tells us to say we're happy. Then they leave and he takes us to the basement. I'm not an inspector. Then who are you? I'm the guy who's going to make sure nobody puts you in a basement ever again. The boy studied him. You're wearing a leather vest. You're a biker? Yeah. Mr. Gerald says bikers are criminals. Mr. Gerald says a lot of things that aren't true. The boy considered this. Then he said, My name's Marcus. Jake's blood froze. Marcus? No, sorry, my name's Dylan. Marcus was my friend. He got relocated 6 months ago. I know about Marcus. Is he okay? Lily said she heard something about him. She said, We're going to find Marcus, I promise. Don't promise things to us. Dylan's voice was hard, flat, old. Adults always promise things. Then they leave and everything gets worse. I'm not leaving. The inspector said that too, the one who came 8 months ago. He wrote things on a clipboard. He saw the bruises on Kelly's arms. He asked questions. And then Mr. Gerald walked him to his car and gave him an envelope. And that night, Dylan stopped, swallowed. That night was the worst paddle night we ever had. Who was the inspector? I don't know his name. He had a badge and a nice car, and he smiled a lot. Even when he was looking at our bruises, he smiled. Jake stored that information. Badge, nice car, smiles while looking at bruises on children. A man paid to look the other way. He moved to the next room. 5 more children, same conditions, same fear, same frozen stillness. A girl, maybe 7, was clutching a younger boy, 4, maybe 5, whispering to him in the dark. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Over and over, a mantra, a prayer, the only comfort she could offer. Hey, Jake said, you're safe now. The girl looked at him. Where's Tommy? We found him. He's being taken care of. Is he dead? No. Kelly said he'd be dead by now. Kelly said nobody survives the quiet place for 5 days. She said Mr. Gerald knew that. She said, Tommy's alive, and he's going to stay alive. The girl exhaled, a sound like a balloon releasing every molecule of air it held. Then she started crying. Not the silent, practiced crying that Lily had shown him. Real crying. Loud, ugly, gasping sobs that shook her tiny body and made the boy beside her cry too. And then the room was full of children crying, and Jake stood there in the middle of it and let them, because these kids hadn't been allowed to make sound in months, and every sob was a prison door opening. His phone buzzed. Preacher. Copper, ambulance is 3 minutes out. How many kids? 19 confirmed, plus Tommy, 20 total. Condition? Starved, all of them. Some beaten. Most show signs of long-term abuse. They're terrified, preacher. They flinch when I move. They apologize for breathing too loud. Silence on the line. Then preacher's voice, thick. And Gerald? Contained. Tank has him. But preacher, he mentioned a name. Pastor Ray Simmons. Slipped out before he could stop himself. He's got connections. This isn't one man. I know. Lily told me while you were riding. She told me about the monthly meetings, the word inventory, the relocations. She told you? She trusts me. A pause. She's sleeping on my lap right now, Copper. First time she slept in days. She's holding your metal so tight I couldn't pry it loose if I tried. Jake's throat closed. There's something else, preacher said. I called Torres. FBI Torres? She's the only federal agent I trust. I told her what we found. She's mobilizing a team. ETA 6 hours. But she said something that changes everything. What? She's had Gerald Hutchins on a watch list for 2 years. Never had enough to move on him. He's protected. Protected by who? A family court judge named Walter Brennan. He's been routing children specifically into homes connected to Gerald's network for at least 6 years. Jake leaned against the wall. A judge, the person who decides where vulnerable children go, was hand-delivering them to their abuser. How many homes? Torres doesn't know the full scope, but she suspects at least a dozen across 4 states. A dozen. Jake, this is bigger than one house. This is bigger than Gerald. This is a machine. And it's been running for years because the people who are supposed to stop it are the ones running it. Then we stop it ourselves. That's exactly what we're going to do. But we have to be smart, legal, documented, everything by the book so these people can't weasel out on technicalities. Understood. One more thing. Torres said something about that inspector Dylan mentioned. Badge, nice car, smiles at bruises. Yeah? She thinks it's the same man who's been signing off on safety certifications for a dozen flagged homes across Montana and Wyoming. A man named David Kimball, State Child Welfare Supervisor. How high does this go? We don't know yet, but we're going to find out. The ambulance arrived, then another, then a third. Paramedics rushed inside and the house exploded into controlled chaos. Children being examined, weighed, documented, medical personnel trying to stay professional while their hands shook and their eyes watered. Tommy was carried out on a stretcher, the IV bag swaying above him. His eyes were closed again. Doc Rivera walked beside him, one hand resting on the stretcher rail, refusing to leave the boy's side. "Is he going to make it?" Jake asked. Doc didn't answer right away. That was the answer. "His organs are stressed, kidneys especially. The next 12 hours will tell us." Doc's voice cracked. "He's 4, Jake. What kind of animal does this to a 4-year-old? The kind that's sitting tied to a chair in his own bedroom right now. Good. I hope he rots." Gerald Hutchins was led out of the house in handcuffs at 3:47 a.m. He'd stopped talking, stopped making demands. He walked with his head down, his bathrobe trailing in the gravel, looking small and ordinary and nothing like the monster he was. But as they loaded him into the patrol car, he lifted his head and looked directly at Jake, and he smiled. A cold, knowing smile that carried a message as clear as spoken words. "You have no idea what you've started." Jake watched the car pull away and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October night. Gerald wasn't scared. A man who had just been caught with a dying child in his basement should be terrified. Gerald was confident, which meant his network was deeper, stronger, and more protected than anything they'd uncovered so far. His phone rang. Tank's number. "Copper, you need to get back to the office, Gerald's office." "Why?" "We found the files. She kept records of everything." "She?" "Gerald's wife, Sarah. She's been doing the books. Every transaction. Every child. Every buyer. She's got it organized like a goddamn accounting firm." "Where's Sarah now?" "Bathroom. Locked herself in when we came through the door. She's been in there crying for an hour." "But Copper, I opened one of the file cabinets." Tank's voice changed, went thick, went rough. "There are folders labeled transferred. Each one has a photo, a child's photo, and underneath the photo, there's a price. Names, dates, dollar amounts. I've counted 23 folders so far, and I'm not done. 23 children, at least. And there are 2 more cabinets I haven't opened." Jake closed his eyes, stood still in the cold air, let the number wash over him. 23 children, at minimum, bought and sold, photographed and priced like livestock at auction, filed away in cabinets by a woman who then walked to church on Sunday and smiled in the choir. "Don't touch anything else," Jake said. "Torres needs to see all of it, chain of custody. We can't give them a single reason to throw this out." "Copy that, but Jake, there's one more thing." "What?" "One of the folders isn't labeled transferred. It's labeled reserved. I opened it. Inside there's a photograph." "Of who?" Tank was quiet for 3 seconds. 3 seconds that lasted a year. "Lily," the word hit Jake like a bullet to the chest. Lily, her photo, in a folder marked reserved, which meant Gerald hadn't just been talking when he told her she was almost ready. He'd already begun the process. She was already cataloged, already priced, already promised to someone. "How much?" Jake's voice came out broken, raw. "The folder says 55,000. There's a note. It says, buyer confirmed, transfer date, November 3rd. Jake's legs nearly gave out. November 3rd was 11 days away. 11 days. If Lily hadn't stolen that beef jerky, if Jake hadn't been at that gas station, if she'd stayed silent one more week, she would have been gone. Sold. Vanished into a world that Jake couldn't think about without his vision going red and his hands curling into weapons. "Copper, you still there?" "I'm here." "What do we do?" Jake stared at the house, at the ambulances, at the children being carried out one by one into the cold night air, blinking at the flashlights, flinching at the uniforms, not understanding that this time, The adults meant what they said. We find every name in every folder. We track every buyer. We trace every dollar. And we tear this whole network out by the roots. And the judge? Brennan? Him too. And whoever's above Brennan? All of them. Every single one. I don't care if it goes all the way to Washington. I don't care if it takes a year. Every person who bought a child, every person who sold one, every person who looked the other way, they answer for it. That's a war, Copper. Then it's a war. Jake walked back to his bike. His hands were still shaking. His daughter's medal was with Lily, and without it, his neck felt naked, exposed, like something essential had been removed and placed in the hands of a 6-year-old girl for safekeeping. The sun was still hours away. The night pressed down on him like a weight. Somewhere behind him, children were being loaded into ambulances by men and women who were trying not to cry. Somewhere ahead of him, a network of predators was still operating, still selling, still destroying lives. And somewhere in a gas station parking lot, a little girl with ancient eyes was sleeping in the arms of a 61-year-old biker, clutching a dead girl's medal, trusting for the first time in her life that the promise a stranger made might actually be kept. Jake kicked the engine to life. The sound tore through the silence like a declaration. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. And the people who had built their empires on the backs of broken children had no idea what was coming for them. Jake made it back to the gas station at 4:12 a.m. His body was running on adrenaline and coffee and something deeper, something that wouldn't let him rest while children were still in danger. Preacher was waiting outside. Lily was asleep in the back seat of a brother's truck, wrapped in 2 blankets, the St. Michael medal still clutched in her fist. Even in sleep, she wouldn't let go. Tommy? Preacher asked. Alive. Doc says the next 12 hours decide everything. His kidneys are shutting down. He's 4 years old. I know. Preacher handed Jake a coffee. Black, burnt, gas station quality. Jake drank it like water. Torres called, Preacher said. She's landing in Ridgecrest at 6 a.m. with a full team. But she dropped something on me that you need to hear. I'm listening. Judge Walter Brennan, the one routing kids into the network, Torres has been watching him for 18 months. She could never make a case because every time she got close, evidence disappeared. Witnesses recanted. Files went missing from state databases. Someone's cleaning up after him. Not someone, an office. Brennan is connected to a state child welfare supervisor named David Kimball. The inspector, the one Dylan told me about. Badge, nice car, smiles at bruises. That's him. Kimball has been certifying network homes as safe for 6 years. Every red flag, every complaint, every mandatory investigation, Kimball handled it personally. And every single one came back clean. Because he was paid to make them clean. Worse than that, Preacher's voice dropped. Torres thinks Kimball is the recruiter. He identifies vulnerable children in the system, kids with no family, no advocates, nobody asking questions, and he steers them into network homes. He's the pipeline. Jake set down his coffee. How many kids has he processed? Torres estimates over 200 in 6 years. 200 children fed into a machine designed to exploit them, by a man whose job was to protect them. Where is Kimball now? That's the problem. Torres tried to locate him 2 hours ago. His house is empty. His office is cleaned out. His phone is disconnected. He ran, which means someone warned him. Someone in law enforcement or someone connected to Brennan's network saw us hit Gerald's house tonight and made a call. Jake's gut twisted. They had a leak. Somewhere in the chain between the raid and the FBI, someone had tipped off the network, which meant every other operator on their list might already know what was coming. The other homes, Jake said, the other states, if they've been warned, I'm already on it. I've got chapters in Wyoming, Idaho and Colorado standing by. But we can't move without Torres. She needs to coordinate with field offices in each state. By the time she coordinates, those homes will be empty, kids moved, evidence destroyed. I know. So what do we do? Preacher looked at him with eyes that had buried a daughter and built a motorcycle club on her grave. We give Torres until 6 a.m. If she can't move by then, we move without her. That's 3 hours. A lot can happen in 3 hours. A lot did happen. At 4:47 a.m., Sarah Hutchins, Gerald's wife, the woman who had locked herself in the bathroom, finally opened the door. She came out with mascara streaked down her face and a flash drive clutched in her hand. The brother guarding her called Jake immediately. She wants to talk, says she has something that changes everything, won't give it to anyone but the person in charge. Jake drove back to the house. Sarah was sitting at the kitchen table. Her hands were shaking so violently the flash drive rattled against the wood. Mrs. Hutchins, I want immunity. I can't give you that. Then I want protection for me and my daughter. Jake stopped. Your daughter? Emma, she's 14. She's at boarding school in Oregon. Gerald doesn't know she exists. How does your husband not know about your daughter? She's not Gerald's. She's from before. I sent her away when Gerald started when it started. I sent her away to keep her safe. You sent your daughter to safety and let 20 children starve in your house. Sarah flinched. Her face crumpled. You think I don't know that? You think I sleep at night? I've been keeping records for 3 years. Every transaction, every name, every dollar, because I knew eventually someone would come. And when they did, I wanted to have enough to burn it all down. She slid the flash drive across the table. Everything's on there. Financial records, communication logs, names of every buyer Gerald ever sold to, names of every operator in the network, and the name of the person running it all. Jake picked up the flash drive. Gerald runs it. Gerald's a foot soldier. He thinks he's important, but he's not. None of them are. The foster parents, the inspectors, even Judge Brennan, they're all just pieces on a board. Then who's moving them? Sarah's eyes went wide with something that wasn't fear. It was terror, pure, bone-deep animal terror. If I tell you, I'm dead. My daughter's dead. Everyone who knows is dead. You're already in danger. Gerald knows you kept records. When he figures out you're talking, Gerald can't figure out anything from a jail cell. His network can. Kimball already ran. Someone warned him. That means the people above Gerald know what happened tonight. They're already cleaning house. Sarah's shaking got worse. She grabbed the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. His name is Congressman David Mercer. The air in the room changed. Tank, standing by the door, inhaled sharply. He chairs the House Subcommittee on Child Welfare, Sarah continued, her voice barely a whisper. He writes the federal funding formulas for foster care. He decides how much money each state gets per child. And he takes a cut of every transaction in the network. 10%, off the top. Every child sold, Mercer gets his share. A sitting congressman. He visits Gerald twice a year, drives up in a rental car, never his own vehicle, pays cash for everything. He sat at this table, Jake. He sat right where you're sitting and he looked at photographs of children and pointed at the ones he wanted reserved for specific buyers. How do you know the buyers? Because some of them are his donors, his campaign contributors, his friends. Sarah's voice cracked wide open. These aren't strangers buying children on the dark web. These are businessmen, lawyers, a retired general, people with money and power and the kind of connections that make problems disappear. Jake felt the ground shifting under him. This wasn't a foster care fraud ring. This was an organized trafficking operation protected at the highest levels of government. The flash drive, he said, does it have proof connecting Mercer directly? Wire transfers from shell companies he controls. Encrypted messages I screenshotted before Gerald could delete them. And photographs. Mercer in this house, standing next to children who were sold within weeks of his visits. "Why didn't you go to the police?" Sarah laughed. It was the ugliest sound Jake had ever heard. "The police chief's brother-in-law is one of Mercer's buyers. The county sheriff plays golf with Judge Brennan every Thursday. The state attorney general received $40,000 in campaign contributions from a PAC that Mercer controls." She looked at Jake with hollow eyes. "There is no one to go to. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly the way they designed it." Jake took the flash drive and called Torres immediately. She answered on the first ring. "Torres, I have something. Gerald's wife kept records, a flash drive with everything. Financial trails, buyer names, communication logs, and a name, the person running the entire network." "Who?" "Congressman David Mercer." The silence on Torres's end lasted 7 seconds. 7 seconds where Jake could hear her breathing change. Hear the shift from exhaustion to something electric. "Say that again." "David Mercer, chairman of the House Subcommittee on Child Welfare. He's been taking 10% of every child sold through this network. Sarah Hutchins has proof. Wire transfers, photographs, communications." "Jake, do you understand what you're telling me? Mercer controls the funding for half the foster care system in the country. He controls my agency's budget. If I go after him and the evidence isn't airtight, it's airtight. Sarah's been building this for 3 years. Even so, the moment we move on a sitting congressman, every political force in Washington activates. His lawyers will be at my door within hours. My superiors will be ordered to shut me down. Careers will end. Mine first. And if we don't move, he keeps selling kids." Torres was quiet for a long beat. "I'll be there in 90 minutes. Don't let Sarah Hutchins out of your sight. She's the most important witness in the country right now." "Understood. And Jake, be careful. If Kimball already ran, Mercer knows something went wrong. He'll be in damage control mode. And men like Mercer don't just destroy evidence." "What do they destroy?" "Witnesses." Jake hung up and looked at Sarah. She was still shaking, still gripping the table. But there was something else in her eyes now. Something that looked almost like relief. The relief of a person who has carried a secret so heavy it bent their spine, and finally set it down. "You did the right thing," Jake said. "Don't," Sarah's voice hardened. "Don't tell me I did the right thing. I watched children suffer for years. I filed their photos in cabinets and wrote their prices in ledgers, and went to bed every night knowing what was happening under my roof. The right thing would have been burning this house down with Gerald in it the first time he touched a child. I didn't do the right thing. I did the late thing." Jake had no argument for that. She was right. "Where are you going to put me?" Sarah asked. "Somewhere safe. My brothers will watch you." "And my daughter?" "Give me her information. We'll send someone to Oregon tonight." Sarah wrote down the school name and Emma's details with hands that could barely hold the pen. Jake passed the paper to Tank, who made the call immediately. By 5:30 a.m., the scope of the operation had exploded beyond anything Jake had imagined when he found a starving girl behind an ice machine 7 hours ago. Torres arrived with a 12-person team and set up a command post at the Ridgecrest fire station. Sarah's flash drive was being copied, verified, and analyzed, and the brothers were mobilizing. Preacher stood before a group of 67 Hells Angels in the fire station parking lot. The original 143 had been split, some guarding the children at the hospital, some securing Gerald's property, some protecting Sarah. But more were coming. Chapters from across the West were sending riders. "Listen up," Preacher said. "What started as one house is now 14 confirmed locations across 4 states. What started as one predator is now a network that reaches into the United States Congress. Torres and the FBI will handle the legal takedown. Our job is the children. We secure them. We protect them. We get them out." He paused. "But there's a complication. One of the operators, Pastor Ray Simmons in Twin Falls, Idaho, has been warned. We don't know by whom, which means some or all of the other operators may also know we're coming. Then we move now, Tank said. All locations, simultaneously. Torres needs time to coordinate with field offices. How much time? She says 4 hours. We don't have 4 hours. If they've been warned, kids are being moved right now. Evidence is being burned right now. Preacher looked at Torres, who had stepped outside to listen. Agent Torres? Torres rubbed her forehead. She looked like she hadn't slept in 2 days, which she probably hadn't. I can't authorize civilian operations across 4 states. Then deputize us, Jake said. Temporary emergency authorization. We hit all 14 locations at once. We secure the children and preserve the evidence. You follow with legal authority. That's not how the law works. The law put those kids in Gerald's house. The law certified his home as safe. The law let a judge hand-deliver children to their abusers, and a congressman profit from their sale. Tell me again how the law works. Torres stared at him. The fire station lights caught the exhaustion in her face, and something else underneath it. The look of a woman who had spent 4 years fighting a system that fought back, and was finally being offered a weapon that might actually work. Give me 30 minutes, she said. I'll make calls. She made the calls. Jake made his own. By 6:15 a.m., 378 Hells Angels across 4 states were standing by. 11 teams, 14 targets, coordinated to hit simultaneously. Jake was assigned to Twin Falls. Pastor Ray Simmons, the one who'd been warned, the most dangerous target on the list. He rode out at 6:22 a.m., Tank beside him, 20 brothers behind. The sun was just breaking the horizon, painting the Montana sky in colors that should have been beautiful, but felt like blood. They reached Twin Falls at 10:47 a.m., and that's when everything went wrong. The property was a compound, a church, a main house, 3 outbuildings, and it was surrounded. FBI vehicles, local police, a helicopter circling overhead, all holding position, nobody moving. Jake ditched his bike and pushed through the perimeter until he found the incident commander, a gray-haired FBI agent named Holt, who looked like he'd swallowed something toxic. What's the situation? Holt didn't ask who Jake was. Torres had called ahead. Simmons saw us coming, grabbed 6 children and barricaded inside the church. He's armed, shotgun confirmed, claims he has a dead man's switch wired to propane tanks. Is it real? Can't confirm, can't risk it. Has he made demands? Just one. He wants to talk to someone who understands what he's doing. His words. Negotiator? Nearest one is 3 hours out. Those kids don't have 3 hours. I'm aware. Holt handed him a radio. Torres says you talked Gerald's wife into cooperating in under 10 minutes. Channel 7, Simmons is monitoring. Jake took the radio. His hands were steady even though his heart was slamming against his ribs. 6 children, 1 armed man, a building that might be rigged to explode, and a 3-hour gap before anyone qualified showed up. He clicked the button. Pastor Simmons, my name's Jake. I'm not FBI. I'm not police. I'm the guy who found a little girl at a gas station last night because she stole a bag of beef jerky. That's all I am. Static. 5 seconds. 10. Then a voice, tight, controlled, wound up like a coil about to snap. I know who you are. You're the one who took Gerald. You're destroying God's work. I found a 4-year-old boy dying in Gerald's basement. Is that God's work? Gerald was weak. Gerald lost his way. I'm not Gerald. Then what are you, Pastor? I'm a shepherd. Those children are my flock, and I will not let the wolves take them. I'm not a wolf. I'm a father who lost his daughter. I'm just a man who doesn't want any more kids to get hurt. They won't get hurt. Not with me. I protect them. I've always protected them. By selling them? Silence, long and dangerous. I never sold anyone. That was Gerald. That was Brennan. That was, I placed children with Christian families, families who wanted them, families who would raise them in faith. For $50,000 each. That money went to the ministry, every penny, for food, for clothes, for, your kids are starving, Pastor, just like Gerald's. We've been getting reports all morning from the other locations. Same conditions everywhere. Children eating once a day, locked in rooms, beaten, neglected. And the money, all that money the state sends, all that money the buyers pay, where is it? You don't understand the cost of... I understand perfectly. I've seen the files. Gerald's wife kept records. Every dollar accounted for. You know where the money went? Not to children, not to food, not to clothes, to Congressman Mercer, 10% off the top, to Judge Brennan, to David Kimball, to every corrupt official who looked the other way. That's a lie. It's documented. Bank transfers, receipts, photographs. Mercer sat in Gerald's kitchen and chose which children to sell. He picked them out of photographs like he was ordering from a catalog. No, Simmons's voice cracked. That's not... David said the families were vetted. He said, David Mercer is a child trafficker, Pastor. He's been using you, using Gerald, using all of you. You thought you were placing children in Christian homes. He was selling them to the highest bidder. No, that's not... One of the buyers is a man in Nevada who's been investigated twice for child exploitation. Another is a couple in Arizona who lost custody of their own biological children for abuse. These are the families you place children with. These are the people Mercer connected you to. The radio went quiet. Jake could hear breathing, ragged, broken, the sound of a man's worldview collapsing in real time. I didn't know, Simmons whispered. I swear to God, I didn't know. I believe you, but those 6 children in that church with you, they don't care what you knew or didn't know. They're scared, they're trapped, and right now, you're the thing they're most afraid of. I would never hurt them. You're holding a gun in a room full of children. You've told them you'd rather they die than be taken. That's hurting them, Pastor. Right now. Every second they're in there with you, you're hurting them. Simmons started crying. Jake could hear it through the radio. Great heaving sobs that shook the transmission. I was a foster kid. Did you know that? 30 years in the system. 14 homes. I aged out at 18 with nothing. No family. No education. No one who cared if I lived or died. And I swore I would build something better. A place where children were loved. And then someone offered you money. It wasn't about money. It was about... Gerald said there were families who couldn't adopt through regular channels. Good families. People who just wanted to give a child a home. And the fees. Gerald said the fees covered legal costs, background checks. $50,000 for legal costs? Silence. When did you know, Pastor? When did you really know? A long pause. 2 years ago, a girl came back, 12 years old. I'd placed her with a family in Utah when she was 9. She showed up at my church door in the middle of the night, barefoot, covered in bruises. She told me what they'd done to her. What did you do? I called Gerald. I told him we had a problem. And Gerald said she was lying. He said foster kids manipulate. He said I should send her back. Did you? The silence that followed was the loudest thing Jake had ever heard. Did you send her back, Pastor? God forgive me. Jake closed his eyes. Behind him, 100 people held their breath. What happened to her? I don't know. I never saw her again. Gerald said she was relocated to a new family. But after tonight, after what you've told me, Simmons's voice shattered. She's one of the 43, isn't she? She's one of the ones you can't find. Jake didn't answer. He didn't need to. Pastor, listen to me carefully. What happened to that girl? What happened to all of them? You can't undo it. But those 6 kids in that church, you can still save them. Not by holding a gun, not by dying, By walking out that door and telling the FBI everything you know, every name, every buyer, every location, every meeting you ever had with Gerald, in Mercer, in Brennan. They'll put me in prison. Yes. I can't survive prison, not for this. Maybe not, but those 6 children can survive the next hour if you let them walk out of that church. And that's worth more than anything that happens to you. Will you be here when I come out? I'll be right here. Promise me. I promise. The radio went dead. 10 seconds passed. 20. 30. Every agent on that perimeter had their weapon raised. Every brother behind the line had their fists clenched. The church door opened. One child came out, a boy, maybe 8, blinking in the morning light. Then another, a girl, younger, clutching a stuffed animal so worn it had no face left. Then 3 more, clustered together, shaking. Then the smallest one, a girl who couldn't have been older than 5. She walked out alone, looked around at the sea of uniformed adults and leather-vested bikers, and walked straight toward Jake. She grabbed his leg with both arms and looked up at him. Miss Carroll said safe doesn't exist, but you're here, so maybe she was wrong. Jake knelt down. He thought about Lily, about Tommy, about the 43 children still missing. Safe exists, he said. I'm going to show you. Simmons came out last, hands empty, face destroyed by tears. He dropped to his knees before anyone reached him and put his wrists together. I'm sorry, he said as they cuffed him. I'm so sorry. I thought I was saving them. Jake didn't respond. Because the 5-year-old girl was still holding his leg, and she had just done something that cracked him wide open. She smiled. By noon, all 14 locations had been secured. The numbers came in one by one, each report worse than the last. 127 children recovered, 14 operators arrested, 4 children confirmed dead, bodies found buried behind 2 different properties in Montana and Idaho, and 43 children still missing. Sold. Vanished into a buyer network that spanned the country. Torres called Jake at 12:34 p.m. We got them all, every operator, every location. Mercer? That's why I'm calling. Sarah's flash drive is a goldmine. Wire transfers, communications, photographs. It's more than enough for an arrest warrant, but my team is being told to stand down. By who? My division chief. He got a call from Washington this morning. Someone high up. He won't say who. He told me the Mercer angle is being reassigned to a special task force. What does that mean? It means they're going to bury it. The task force is a graveyard. Cases go in, nothing comes out. Mercer has friends at Justice, at the Bureau, everywhere. They're going to let the foster parents take the fall and protect the man at the top. Jake's grip tightened on his phone. That's not happening. I agree, which is why I'm about to do something that will probably end my career. Torres paused. I'm sending Sarah's evidence to the media, all of it. International outlets that can't be pressured by American politics. BBC, Reuters, Der Spiegel. Once it goes global, no task force in the world can bury it. Torres, if they trace it back to you, I know the risks, but there's a little girl at your gas station who weighs 31 pounds and a 4-year-old boy fighting for his life in a hospital. And the man responsible for their suffering is sitting in Washington right now, drinking coffee in his office, protected by the same government that was supposed to protect them. Her voice hardened. I didn't take this job to protect politicians. I took it to protect children. Send me everything Sarah gave you. I'll handle the rest. Jake sent the files at 12:52 p.m. By evening, the world knew David Mercer's name. The story broke at 6 p.m. Eastern. BBC ran it first, then Reuters. Then every major network in the world picked it up within the hour. By midnight, Congressman David Mercer's face was on every screen in America. By morning, his office had released a statement calling the allegations a coordinated political attack using fabricated evidence. By noon, the FBI announced an emergency investigation. By evening, federal vehicles surrounded Mercer's home in Virginia. Jake watched it unfold from a hospital waiting room in Ridgecrest. He'd been there for 14 hours. Tommy was in the pediatric ICU, and Doc Rivera hadn't left the boy's side since the ambulance brought him in. The doctor came out at 7:43 p.m. Young woman, exhausted eyes. She looked at Jake like she wasn't sure whether to give him news or ask him for answers. "Are you family?" "Close enough." The boy, Tommy, his kidneys were in acute failure when he arrived. "We've stabilized him. IV fluids, electrolytes, warming protocol. His body temperature was 89 degrees when he came in." "Is he going to make it?" "He's fighting. He's severely malnourished. His body was essentially eating itself to survive. Another 6 to 8 hours in that basement, and we wouldn't be having this conversation." Jake's hands curled against his knees. 6 to 8 hours. If Lily hadn't stolen that beef jerky, if he'd gone to a different gas station, if he'd looked at his phone instead of hearing a wrapper crinkle. "Can I see him?" "He's sleeping, but he's been asking for someone. He keeps saying a name." "Lily?" "No, he keeps saying dark, over and over. And then he says, 'No more dark,' like it's a question." Jake's chest constricted so tight he couldn't breathe for a moment. "That was my medic. Doc Rivera told him no more dark when we pulled him out. He's holding on to that. It's the only thing he said besides crying for water." She paused. "Mr. Brennan, I've been a pediatrician for 11 years. I've seen abuse cases. But 20 children from one house, all in this condition, I've never seen anything like this. You're about to see more. There are 127 kids coming out of 14 houses across 4 states, most of them in the same shape or worse." The doctor's face went white. 127? "That we've found. There are 43 more we haven't." She sat down heavily in the chair beside him. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Jake's phone buzzed. "Preacher." "Copper, turn on the news." "What channel?" "Any of them." Jake walked to the waiting room television. A nurse had it on CNN. The anchor was mid-sentence. "Congressman Mercer was taken into custody at his Virginia residence approximately 30 minutes ago. Federal agents executed a warrant based on financial evidence obtained during the Montana foster care raids. The charges include 17 counts of child trafficking, 12 counts of conspiracy, and 3 counts of accessory to murder." Jake stopped listening. He sat down in the nearest chair and stared at the screen while they showed footage of Mercer being led to a black SUV. Gray hair, distinguished face, expensive suit even at the moment of his arrest. He looked exactly like what he was. A powerful man who had never expected consequences. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Torres. "You watching?" "Yeah. We got him, but Jake, it's already starting." "What's starting?" "His lawyers filed an emergency motion 30 minutes after the arrest. They're claiming the evidence was obtained through illegal means. They're going after Sarah's testimony, saying she was coerced, and they're trying to suppress the flash drive." "She wasn't coerced. She came forward voluntarily." "I know that, but Mercer's legal team is the best money can buy. They're going to attack every piece of evidence, every witness, every procedure. They'll argue the bikers contaminated the crime scenes. They'll say the children were coached." "Coached? These kids were starving." "I'm not saying it'll work. I'm saying it's going to be a fight, a long one, and the children are going to be at the center of it. What do you need from me? Keep them safe. Keep them together. The defense is going to try to scatter the witnesses. Different states, different agencies, different jurisdictions. If the kids get separated, their testimony weakens. They're not getting separated. Jake, the state has authority over their placement. If Montana Child Services put them in Gerald's house, they're not touching these kids again. That's not your decision to make. Watch me." Torres sighed. I'll do what I can from the legal side. But you need to understand, Mercer isn't just fighting for his freedom. He's fighting for survival. Men like him don't go to prison. They make deals. They trade information. They leverage connections. And if he thinks a 6-year-old girl's testimony can put him away for life, he will find a way to reach her. Jake felt ice slide down his spine. Is that a threat assessment? It's a reality check. We've already intercepted communications from Mercer's people trying to locate the children. They know about the ranch where you moved Lily. Not the exact location, but they know it exists. How? We don't know yet. Could be a leak in my office. Could be surveillance we haven't detected. Could be Kimball. He's still in the wind. I'll move her tonight. Move all of them. Every child who's a potential witness needs to be in a secure location that nobody outside your immediate circle knows about. Jake hung up and called Preacher immediately. We need to move Lily. Tonight. Torres says Mercer's people are looking for her. Already done. What? I moved her 2 hours ago. The moment I saw the arrest on television, I knew they'd come for the witnesses. She's at a new location. Only 3 people know where. Me, Elena, and you. Where? Not on the phone. Come to the clubhouse. We'll talk in person. Jake drove to the clubhouse at speeds that would have gotten him arrested on any other night. He found Preacher in the back office. The old man looked like he'd aged 10 years in 24 hours. She didn't want to leave, Preacher said quietly. She cried. First time she's cried out loud since you found her. She said she was scared you wouldn't be able to find her again. Did you tell her I'd come? I told her you keep promises. She's holding that medal so tight she's got an imprint of St. Michael on her palm. I need to see her. Tomorrow. Tonight she needs to sleep. Elena's with her. And Jake, Maya's there too. Maya? The 9-year-old from Gerald's house. The one who doesn't talk. She hasn't left Lily's side since the hospital. Doc Rivera's wife, Carmen, has been looking after her, but the girl won't go anywhere without Lily. They sleep holding hands. Jake sat down heavily. 2 little girls, both broken in ways that would take years to understand, holding on to each other in the dark because the adults in their lives had failed them so completely that another child's hand was the only thing they trusted. There's something else, Preacher said. Something Maya did. What? Preacher slid a piece of paper across the desk. Construction paper. Crayon. The kind of drawing a child makes. Jake picked it up. The drawing showed a man in a suit sitting at a table. Across from him, a smaller figure. Gerald, based on the proportions. Between them on the table, stick figures of children. And in the man's hand, what looked like an envelope. Thick. Full. Maya drew this? 3 hours ago. Elena gave her crayons and paper to keep her calm. She drew for an hour straight. There are 11 more drawings. They all show the same man. The man in the suit. Torres had her team look at the drawings, the details, the man's watch, his tie, the way he parts his hair. They match Mercer. Maya saw him. She was in that house when Mercer visited. She watched him pick children. She's 9. She can't testify. Can she? With the right support, she can. Her psychologist says Maya's selective mutism is trauma-based. She understands everything. She processes everything. She just can't speak. But her drawings are detailed enough to constitute evidence. Jake stared at the drawing. A 9-year-old girl who couldn't speak had captured the face of a congressman buying children. And she'd done it in crayon on construction paper. These kids, Jake said quietly, every time I think I've seen the worst of it, they show me something stronger. That's why we protect them. Not because they're weak, because they're strong enough to bring down an empire if we just give them the chance. The next 4 days were chaos. Torres built her case while Mercer's lawyers fought every step. Motions filed, hearings scheduled, legal battles that played out on cable news 24 hours a day. Mercer's defense strategy became clear almost immediately. Discredit the witnesses, challenge the evidence, paint the Hells Angels as criminals who manufactured a scandal. My client is the victim of a coordinated attack by a violent motorcycle gang, Mercer's lead attorney told the cameras outside the courthouse. These allegations are based on the testimony of a convicted felon's wife and the fantasies of traumatized children who have been manipulated by... Jake turned off the television. He couldn't watch it without wanting to put his fist through the screen. On day 3, Kimball was found. U.S. Marshals picked him up at a motel in Nevada, 60 miles from the Mexican border, with 3 fake passports and $47,000 in cash. He'd been running for 72 hours. Torres called Jake with the news. He's talking, singing actually. The moment we mentioned Mercer's arrest, Kimball started trading everything he had for a deal. What's he giving you? Names, dates, procedures. He's confirming everything on Sarah's flash drive and adding more. Buyers we didn't know about, homes we hadn't identified, and something else. What? Judge Brennan. Kimball says Brennan didn't just route children into network homes. He actively participated in selecting which children were sold. He reviewed case files, identified the most vulnerable, kids with no family, no advocates, and flagged them for Gerald. A family court judge handpicking children for trafficking. It gets worse. Kimball says Brennan presided over custody hearings specifically designed to sever parental rights so children could be funneled into the system. He terminated the rights of at least 12 biological parents whose children ended up in Gerald's pipeline. 12 parents lost their kids so a judge could sell them? Kimball has documentation, court records, internal communications. Brennan was careful, but not careful enough. Where's Brennan now? Arrested this morning, he tried to destroy his home office, set a fire. His wife called 911. Firefighters pulled him out, along with 2 filing cabinets he was trying to burn. What was in the cabinets? Records going back 9 years. Jake, this network didn't start with Gerald. It started with Brennan. He built it. He recruited Gerald, Simmons, the others. And when it got too big for him to manage alone, he brought in Mercer for political protection. 9 years, at least. We're still counting children. The number keeps going up. Jake closed his eyes. 9 years. Hundreds of children passing through a machine designed to exploit them, protected by the very institutions created to keep them safe. Every safeguard corrupted. Every checkpoint compromised. Every voice silenced. Except one. A 6-year-old girl who stole a bag of beef jerky and whispered 5 words to a stranger. The trial began 7 weeks later. Federal courthouse. Maximum security. The kind of trial that drew reporters from 30 countries and protesters on both sides of the street. Mercer's defense team was a wall of expensive suits and rehearsed outrage. They challenged every piece of evidence. They questioned every witness's credibility. They brought in experts who testified that traumatized children frequently confabulate, a word Jake had to look up that meant they make things up. Torres presented the financial evidence first. Wire transfers, shell companies, offshore accounts. Sarah Hutchins testified for 2 days. She was calm, detailed, devastating. She walked the jury through every transaction she documented, every child photographed, every price negotiated. "And what was your role in all of this?" the prosecutor asked. "I kept the books. Gerald handled the children. I handled the money." "Why didn't you report it?" Sarah looked at the jury. "Because every person I could have reported it to was already involved. The police chief, the county sheriff, the state welfare supervisor, the judge who assigned children to our home. Who was I supposed to call? Who was left?" The defense attorney pounced. "Isn't it true, Mrs. Hutchins, that you're testifying in exchange for reduced charges?" "Yes." "And isn't it true that you profited directly from the sale of children for over 6 years?" "Yes." "So you're a child trafficker seeking leniency by blaming a decorated congressman." Sarah's jaw tightened. "I'm a woman who did unforgivable things, And I'm here because the man who ran this network is sitting in that chair, pretending he didn't. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking the jury to look at the documents, the bank records, the photographs of David Mercer standing in my kitchen, choosing which children to sell. The evidence doesn't care about my credibility. It speaks for itself. The courtroom was silent. Day 8. Dylan testified. The 10-year-old boy from Gerald's house who had told Jake about the inspector. He sat in the witness chair looking small and scared and impossibly brave. Did you ever see the defendant visit your foster home? The prosecutor asked. 3 times. He came in a rental car. He wore nice suits. Mr. Gerald made us clean the house before he came. What happened during these visits? He looked at us, like we were in a lineup. He'd walk down the hallway and look into each room. Sometimes he'd stop and ask us questions. What kind of questions? Our age, if we had family, if anyone visited us. Dylan's voice wavered. He asked Marcus if anyone would miss him. Marcus said no, and the man smiled. What happened to Marcus? He was gone the next week. Mr. Gerald said he went to a better home. But Marcus didn't even get to take his backpack. Is the man who asked Marcus those questions in this courtroom? Dylan raised his hand and pointed at Mercer. His finger was steady, even though his chin was trembling. That's him. Day 12. Maya's testimony. The 9-year-old still hadn't spoken, but the judge allowed her to communicate through drawings made in real time, interpreted by her psychologist. The prosecutor placed a large pad of paper and crayons on a table in front of her. Maya, can you draw what you saw when the man in the suit visited your foster home? Maya picked up a brown crayon. She drew for 4 minutes. The courtroom watched in absolute silence. When she finished, she held up the drawing. The man in the suit, Gerald beside him. Between them, a table covered with photographs. And in the corner, a small figure hiding behind a door. A girl with dark hair, watching. Is that you, Maya? The psychologist asked gently. Maya nodded. And the man in the suit, is he in this room? Maya put down the crayon, climbed off her chair, walked across the courtroom floor, and stopped directly in front of David Mercer. She stared up at him. He couldn't meet her eyes. Then she did something no one expected. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it carefully and placed it on the defense table in front of Mercer. Another drawing. This one showed the same man in the suit, but this time he was behind bars. And outside the bars, a row of children holding hands, smiling. The jury foreman later told reporters that was the moment they stopped deliberating internally. But the verdict still had to wait. Day 15. Lily. Jake hadn't wanted her to testify. She was 6. She'd been through enough. But Torres explained that Lily's testimony, specifically about Gerald telling her she was reserved, about the conversation she overheard about Marcus being worth $45,000, was critical to establishing the pattern. The judge allowed testimony via closed-circuit video. Lily sat in a room adjacent to the courtroom with Elena beside her and Jake standing just outside the door where she could see him through the glass. She was wearing a yellow dress Elena had bought her. She'd gained 4 pounds. Her hair was clean, brushed, held back with a clip shaped like a butterfly. She looked like a different child. But her eyes, those ancient blue eyes, were the same. Lily, do you remember the night Jake found you? The prosecutor asked through the screen. Yes. Can you tell us what you were doing? I stole beef jerky. Because I was hungry. I hadn't eaten since Monday. Why hadn't you eaten? Mr. Gerald said food was for kids who earned it. I didn't earn it because I spilled water on Tuesday. You hadn't eaten for 5 days because you spilled water? It was an accident, but Mr. Gerald said accidents have consequences. Lily, did Mr. Gerald ever talk to you about leaving his home? Lily's face changed. The color drained from her cheeks. She gripped Elena's hand. He said I was almost ready. He said there was a man who wanted someone like me. He said I should be grateful because the man would give me nice things. Did he tell you the man's name? No, but he said the man was important. He said the man helped lots of kids find new homes. Lily, I'm going to show you a photograph. Can you tell me if you've ever seen this person? A photograph appeared on the screen. Mercer's official congressional portrait. Lily stared at it. Her grip on Elena's hand tightened until her knuckles went white. "That's him," she whispered. "He came to the house. Twice. He walked through the rooms and looked at us. He stopped at my bed and asked Mr. Gerald how old I was. Mr. Gerald said 6, and the man said..." Lily stopped. Her bottom lip trembled. "What did he say, Lily?" "He said perfect." The word hung in the courtroom like a guillotine blade. Jake, standing outside the door, pressed his forehead against the wall and breathed. In, out, in, out. His daughter's metal burned against his chest like a brand. The defense attorney's cross-examination lasted 4 minutes. He asked Lily 3 questions. She answered each one with the quiet, devastating honesty of a child who had been told her whole life that nobody would believe her and had decided to speak anyway. "Isn't it possible you imagine this man visiting your home?" "No, I'm not crazy. I'm 6. I know what I saw." "Could someone have told you to say these things?" "Jake told me to tell the truth. That's what I'm doing." "And what truth is that?" Lily looked directly into the camera, directly at the courtroom, directly at Mercer. "That I was hungry, that Tommy almost died, that my friend Marcus was taken away and nobody told us where, and that man sat in our kitchen and chose which kids to sell like we were things. We're not things, we're kids, and somebody should have listened a long time ago." The defense attorney sat down. He had nothing left. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts, every single one. When the verdict was read, Jake was standing at the back of the courtroom. Lily wasn't there. She was back at the safe house with Elena and Maya. But Torres was there, and Preacher, and Tank, and 47 Hells Angels who had filled the gallery every single day of the trial. Mercer didn't react. He sat perfectly still while the foreman read count after count. Guilty, 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 17 times. His face was blank. His eyes were empty. The mask of a man who had spent his entire career performing emotions he didn't feel, finally stripped of its last pretense. The judge sentenced him to 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Brennan received 35 years. Kimball received 22. Gerald Hutchins, life without parole. The 14 foster home operators received sentences ranging from 15 to 40 years. Jake walked out of the courthouse into blinding daylight. Torres found him sitting on a bench away from the cameras and the crowds. "You okay?" "I don't know what I am." "You did something extraordinary. You know that, right?" "I found a hungry kid and made a phone call. That's not extraordinary, that's basic. And yet nobody else did it, not in 9 years. Not one person looked at those children and picked up a phone." Torres sat beside him. 412 arrests, Jake, across 6 states. Over 300 children recovered, the largest child trafficking prosecution in American history. And it started because you heard a rapper crinkle. It started because Lily was brave enough to talk. Then you were brave enough to listen. Same thing. Jake's phone buzzed. Elena. "Jake, you need to come home. Something happened." His blood went cold. "Is Lily okay?" "She's fine. She's more than fine. Just come." He rode to the safe house in 20 minutes. Elena met him at the door with tears streaming down her face. But she was smiling. Really smiling. "What happened?" Maya spoke. Jake stopped walking. "What?" 20 minutes ago, she walked up to Lily, took her hand, and said 3 words. First words she's spoken in 7 months. "What did she say?" Elena's smile widened through her tears. She said, "We are safe." 3 words, "We are safe." Maya said them once, then again, then a 3rd time like she was testing whether the world would punish her for making sound. It didn't. so she kept talking. Slowly, carefully, one sentence at a time, rebuilding a voice that had been stolen from her 7 months ago in a house where children learned that silence was survival. Jake knelt in front of her. She looked different than the girl they'd pulled from Gerald's house. Her hair had grown out, her cheeks had filled. Her eyes were still too old, but something behind them had shifted. Something like light. "Say it again, Maya." "We are safe." "Yeah, you are." Maya reached out and touched the St. Michael medal hanging around Lily's neck. Lily had refused to give it back to Jake. She said she was keeping it until she was sure the dark wasn't coming back. Jake told her to keep it as long as she needed. "Lily told me about the medal," Maya said. Her voice was rusty, unused, like a door hinge that hadn't moved in months. She said a man gave it to her and promised to come back. And he did. "He did," Lily confirmed. She was standing beside Maya with her hand wrapped around the smaller girl's wrist. Not holding hands, holding on. The way you grip something when you've been drowning and finally touch solid ground. "People don't come back," Maya said. "That's what I learned. People leave and they don't come back. But you did." "I did." "Why?" Jake looked at this 9-year-old girl who had communicated in crayon for 7 months because words had become weapons in the world she'd survived. He thought about his daughter, about the promise he'd made on a hospital bed 9 years ago when he'd arrived too late and sworn he'd never be late again. "Because somebody should have come for you a long time ago, and nobody did, so I did." Maya nodded, then she looked at Lily. "He's real." "Told you," Lily said. 6 months passed. The world moved on the way the world does. New headlines, new scandals, new outrages to consume the attention span of a country that runs on fury and forgets in weeks. But in Cedar Ridge, Montana, the aftershocks kept coming. Tommy survived. His kidneys recovered. He spent 2 months in the hospital and another 3 in a rehabilitation facility where therapists worked with him every day to undo what 5 days in a basement had done to a 4-year-old brain. He still woke up screaming some nights. He still couldn't be in dark rooms. Every light in his foster home, his real foster home, vetted by Torres's task force personally, stayed on 24 hours a day. The electricity bill was enormous. Nobody cared. His first full sentence after recovery came on a Tuesday in March. His foster mother was tucking him in and reached for the lamp. "No," Tommy said. "Dark hurts." "I'll leave it on, baby." "Promise?" "Promise." "Okay," he paused. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. "Thank you for not being the dark." She called Jake that night, crying so hard she could barely speak. Jake listened. Then he hung up and sat alone for a long time, holding his daughter's medal, the one Lily had finally returned to him 2 weeks earlier, pressing it into his palm the same way he'd pressed it into hers that night at the gas station. "I don't need it anymore," Lily had told him. "You already showed me what it means." The adoption was finalized on the first day of April. Jake had never planned on becoming a father again. After Cassie died, he'd sealed that part of himself off, welded it shut, poured concrete over it. But Lily had found a crack in the wall, or maybe she'd made one, and now here he was, standing in a courtroom holding a 6-year-old girl's hand while a judge asked if he understood the responsibilities of parenthood. "I do," Jake said. The judge looked at Lily. "And Lily, do you understand what adoption means?" Lily squeezed Jake's hand. "It means I get to stay." 4 words, simple, devastating. The judge signed the papers with hands that weren't quite steady. Outside the courthouse, Preacher was waiting with 47 brothers, full leather, bikes gleaming in the spring sun. They'd ridden escort from the clubhouse, not because anyone asked them to, but because family shows up. "Welcome home, little wolf," Preacher said, crouching down to Lily's level. "I'm not little." "No, you're not, my mistake." Lily smiled. A real smile, the kind that reaches the eyes and stays there. She'd been doing that more lately, smiling without checking first to see if it was allowed. Maya was adopted 3 weeks later by Doc Rivera and his wife Carmen. She lived 20 minutes from Lily. They saw each other every weekend, every single weekend. Maya called Lily her sister. Lily called Maya her best friend. They were both right. Dylan, the 10-year-old boy who had told Jake about the inspector, was placed with Elena and Danny, Preacher's daughter-in-law and son. He'd resisted at first, refused to unpack his bag for 3 weeks, slept with his shoes on in case he needed to run. But Elena was patient in the way that only someone who understood broken things could be. And Danny had a quiet steadiness that Dylan eventually leaned into the way a tired person leans against a wall. "You can unpack," Elena told him one morning over breakfast. "What if you send me back?" "There is no back. There's only here." Dylan unpacked that afternoon. He put his shoes in the closet. He slept barefoot for the first time in 2 years. The 43 missing children, the ones who had been sold through the network, were found over the course of 4 months. Torres's task force, aided by Kimball's testimony and Sarah's records, traced every transaction, every buyer, every shell company, every anonymous transfer. All 43 were recovered alive. Some were in rough shape. Some would need years of therapy. Some might never fully recover from what had been done to them. But they were alive, and they were free. And for the first time in years, someone knew their names. Jake got the call from Torres on a Saturday morning. He was in the backyard with Lily, teaching her to throw a baseball. She was terrible at it. She threw like she'd never used her arms for anything but shielding her face. But she was laughing, laughing, and the sound of it was so foreign and so beautiful that Jake had to turn away for a moment so she wouldn't see his eyes. "All 43, Torres said. "Every single one." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. The last 2 were recovered this morning in Canada, a brother and sister, ages 7 and 9. They've been sold to a couple in British Columbia 18 months ago. They're in custody now. The children are safe." Jake sat down on the grass. Lily ran over. "What's wrong? Are you sad?" "No, sweetheart, I'm the opposite of sad." "What's the opposite of sad?" Jake pulled her into a hug. This is the opposite of sad. The Hells Angels launched Angel Watch on the 1-year anniversary. Every chapter in the country partnered with local foster care agencies. Unannounced visits, regular check-ins, safe reporting channels for children who needed to tell someone something but didn't know who to trust. Jake headed the Montana chapter's program. Lily was his unofficial advisor. She attended every planning meeting, sitting on his lap or beside him in a chair too big for her, listening with those ancient blue eyes that were slowly, day by day, becoming young again. "You need a box," she told him one evening after a meeting. "A box?" "At every foster home, a locked box where kids can put notes, secret notes, things they're scared to say out loud. And only you open it, not the foster parents, not the caseworkers, just you." "Why me?" "Because you listen." They installed the boxes. Within the first month, they received 47 notes. 11 led to investigations. 3 led to children being removed from dangerous homes. One note, written in crayon by a 5-year-old boy, said simply, "He hurts us when the door is closed. Please come." They came. Within the hour, 12 Hells Angels and 2 FBI agents. The boy was safe by nightfall. On the anniversary itself, 143 motorcycles rode through Ridgecrest, past the gas station where Jake had heard a rapper crinkle, past the house on Route 12 that had been demolished and replaced with a community garden, past the courthouse where Mercer had been sentenced. Lily rode on the back of Jake's bike, arms wrapped tight around his waist, a helmet that was still slightly too big bobbing on her head. She was 7 now, 52 pounds, healthy, growing, alive in a way that she hadn't been the night he'd found her barefoot behind an ice machine, choking on stolen beef jerky, whispering 5 words that changed everything. They stopped at the garden, A bronze plaque had been installed in the center, in memory of the children who suffered in silence, and in honor of those who finally listened. Below it, 4 names, the children who hadn't survived the network. Tommy's name was not among them. He was alive, learning to ride a tricycle in a backyard in Colorado, where every light stayed on all night. Lily stood in front of the plaque. She couldn't read all the words yet. Jake read them to her. "What does silence mean?" she asked. "It means nobody was talking." But they were. Nobody was listening. Jake looked at this girl, his girl, 7 years old, blonde hair catching the late afternoon sun, wearing a yellow jacket Elena had given her, the St. Michael medal tucked under her shirt because she'd asked Jake for one of her own, and he'd bought her one the next day. "You're right," he said, "but that's over now." They rode home as the sun went down, the rumble of 143 engines filling the air like a heartbeat, like a promise, like the sound of men who had decided that protecting children wasn't a hobby or a project or a seasonal commitment. It was a calling. It was who they were. It was who they would always be. And it started with 5 words from a 6-year-old girl standing barefoot on freezing asphalt, terrified and starving, gripping a stolen bag of beef jerky with both hands. "No police, please. I'll be good." 5 words that exposed a trafficking empire spanning 6 states. 5 words that toppled a congressman, a judge, and a network that had made 52 children disappear. 5 words that proved what the world keeps forgetting. Sometimes the smallest voice carries the loudest truth. Sometimes the people society calls outlaws are the only ones willing to protect the innocent. And sometimes family isn't blood or paperwork or legal documents. Family is the person who crouches down, makes themselves small, and says, "Nobody's calling anyone. You hungry?" Lily had that family now. All 143 of them. Maya had it, Tommy had it, Dylan had it, and 43 children who had been lost in the dark had it too. Because one girl stole beef jerky, one man listened, and 143 brothers rode through the night to prove that the world still had people in it worth trusting. Lily Brennan was never invisible again. None of them were. Not anymore. Not ever again.